Hi, so Mitko and Sarah, they are digital nomads. They've been digital nomads for over 5 years and they're traveling as a couple. So they've got a lot of insights about what it's like to be a nomadic couple. And I'm so excited to hear more from them. They're also from Cincinnati, so that's kind of how we connected. So love to see it. Thank you guys so much. Take it away.
Yeah, thanks for having us. We're excited to be here and
yeah, of course. Happy to meet everyone. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, by the way, like Maria said, just, we're more than happy to stay afterwards and answer as many questions as you guys have.
So. We're open books, so ask us anything.
Yeah.
So we are currently tuning in from Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. We've been here since October. We have I think this is one of the longest stints that we've spent in a single location in the last 5 years, maybe, except for COVID. That obviously we were in one spot for a little bit, but we've really been loving it here. This is, we're really loving it here, and we are leaving here at the end of this month. So yeah.
All righty. Well, then we'll just kind of get started. We have some slides for you guys if they work.
All right, so I'm obviously Sarah. I am originally from Michigan, the Detroit area. One of my main focuses when it comes to work in the last 5 years is what I've mainly been focusing on is digital courses, specifically with a platform called Kajabi. I'm not sure if any of you are really familiar with it, but it's a learning management software, and you can also host a website on it. You can host, they have a CRM, they have digital courses, sales funnels. They really have an all-in-one platform. Two of my big interests outside of work and traveling, which I thought that was too obvious to put on here, is reading and cooking. Cooking is a really interesting one that I was thinking about as I was making this, because I feel like it really helps keep me grounded. We're obviously on the move a lot, and just kind of helps give me a feel for home. And I also am just wildly obsessed with dogs. So a little bit too obsessed with dogs, but yeah.
And my name is Mitko, and if you couldn't tell from the dodgy name, I'm from Bulgaria. That's where I was born, and then I moved to the US when I was 11. And for work, I run a community called Parable, where we create and publish case studies of online businesses to create more transparency around what it's actually like to run and operate an online business. So we get really nerdy about running businesses and what that looks like. I love coffee and I love craft beer. As you can see, I'm constantly caffeinating. And yes, Sarah actually put this one down as what is something funny that I'm interested in. I love to watch bag reviews on YouTube. There's an entire community of bag nerds, if you didn't know this, and I'm one of those bag nerds.
He's not watching Netflix at night. He's watching different zippers on bags, and he's just obsessed. So yeah, if you ever need a bag recommendation, he's your guy for sure. So this is just kind of a brief little timeline that ties into our nomadic journey and where we met and all of this. So we, as some of you may have seen in our post that we posted on Nomadic Network, we met over at Jimmy John's Sandwich in Ohio in 2014. We are both sophomores in college, and we met at a bar. Long story for another time, but that's kind of the starting point of our meeting. And then in 2016, we took our first kind of big nomadic trip. So just a little bit of a background story behind that. I was an au pair in Spain for one summer, and at the end of the summer, Mitko came and met me, and we did, I think it was 9 cities, 5 countries. It was a huge trip in 3 weeks. So we'll get into that a little bit more later, but that was kind of our first step into this life. And then in 2020, we became forever travel partners, and we got,
what is going on here?
Your screen shares. Oh, no, the big surprise is ruined now. Sorry.
Okay.
Go. So we actually had 2 weddings since Mitko's from Bulgaria. We had a wedding in Bulgaria and we had a wedding in Kentucky. So you can see those 2 there. So the background behind this story, in 2016, up until 2016, I was actually on my way into a career in baseball. That was from the start of my college journey up until around 2016, I was on my way with that. I wasn't a mascot. I was a mascot a couple times for the Reds, but I was mostly working in the office. And I was really like clear that that was my path for life, was working in baseball. And I really knew what I wanted to do. I loved it. I was passionate about it. And around this time, Mitko was kind of flirting with the idea of going nomadic and working online and trying to convince me, and me thinking this isn't a realistic lifestyle. You can't travel and make money. It's a scam. This is back in 2016. This is a little, very different from these days. So that's kind of like where this all started to happen. And these are just a couple pictures from that journey in 2016 when we first took that big 3-week vacation. And we really, really fell in love with travel together. And it was a big test of our relationship. We had been together for 2 years at that time. So it was a really big test of like, can we travel together? I think we were on a budget of $20 per day for food, activities, like everything. We had no money. We were, a couple of broke college kids, but it was probably, definitely one of my favorite memories that we've ever had together. So that's kind of what sparked our curiosity for this lifestyle.
Yes. What's next? Oh.
Do you want to go on?
Yeah, so just to kind of list out some of the pros and cons of a digital nomad lifestyle, because that's certainly, you have a give and take. So one of some of the really big pros are obviously you have location freedom, the ability to travel all over, which is really, really great. Inspiration is always a nice one. Like when you're switching locations all the time, you do get to see, like different colors, different settings that can definitely like be very inspirational for whatever you're doing. We're able to save money a lot of the time. Obviously, geo arbitrage is a very big thing. You can live in Mexico, pay a third of what you might be paying in the US for rent and like have a nicer place. You can go out to eat every single day and you'll still spend way less than what you would normally for groceries. We don't have a commute. As stressful as my commute gets is from bed to this desk. So it's not too bad. And then obviously the community, which is sort of an interesting one, because what we found is it takes a few years of you being a nomad to really build up a community. But once that does happen, you end up having friends all over that you can go meet this person in Mexico, that person in Thailand. And so once you spend a few years in that lifestyle, you make some really, really great friends that you have a lot in common with.
And something cool too is like these events or this community, this kind of speeds that process up a little bit for you, which is really cool. So I think, more of these events are coming along, and it's cool to see those different organizations coming up to kind of help speed up that process. So I'm going to get into the cons, because Mitko and I kind of had a talk about this first bullet point here. The grass is always greener bullet point. This applies to me, and it doesn't apply to everyone. I don't think Mitko feels this as much, but I'm always in a situation of wanting what I don't have. So when I'm when I'm traveling and we're moving every month and we're seeing everything, I am desperate for like being grounded in one place. I'm desperate for an apartment in Cincinnati where I can collect decor and furniture, and I'm really, really desperate for that. But this has probably happened 2 or 3 times where we've gotten an apartment, we've furnished it. Mitko's been really great about kind of giving me comfort in that and kind of playing along with it.
And carrying furniture.
And then we get there, and within like 3 months, I'm like, I got to get out of here. Like I have to get back on the road. So I'm really trying to work on that and enjoying where I am in the moment. I've really enjoyed our time here in Puerto Vallarta. I haven't felt this need to get back on the road. So it's just kind of finding what works. But and something that comes along with that is decision fatigue. When you have, we can literally go anywhere. It's wonderful, and I'm so grateful for that. But it does cause a lot of just stress around where should we go. So it just that's definitely a little bit of a con. Routine disturbance is a pretty obvious one. You're constantly changing location, constantly finding a new workspace, a new coffee shop. And while that is beautiful in a way, it is definitely a muscle to continue practicing, to find your routines and just make them really sacred. Not feeling grounded is another one. And something to go along with that is looking back at friends and family that have beautiful apartments and big dogs and these things, and spending time with family. And you can't always have that. So, and then obviously being away from family is tough, but family comes and visits us a lot, which has been really nice. It's giving them a vacation to come visit us, and we're lucky that they're able to do that.
So in terms of like how to actually, I can't even see the title of our own, sharing a workspace with your own partner or something. So this is really important because obviously this isn't just our apartment, this is also our office, and we both share this office. So for us, like what's really worked for us is to kind of like test and give it time to figure out what's going to be the best way to do this in the location that we're at now, because what might work for this apartment may not work for another apartment just based on the way that it's set up. So we like to have like designated workspaces. So right now we have this desk right here. And one of the things also that's kind of like a fun little tidbit is don't be afraid to rearrange furniture. Like this desk, when we first moved in, was actually pushed up against the wall. And then when we realized that we can just pivot it and have like a nice view and like better sunlight. So definitely move things around. I, a lot of times like work on our kitchen counter back there. So just kind of like test a few different things when you move into a place for the first time and see what works for you.
And we like to kind of, with this location, we found that we like to kind of flow throughout the day. So sometimes Nick goes at the desk in the beginning of the day and I'm at the counter, and we just kind of move around. I'm never sitting in one place for the entire day when I'm working. I'm constantly like moving from the couch to the desk to the, so that's really important for me just to keep my brain going. So we just have, it depends on the place that we're at. Calls is probably the biggest, one of the biggest pieces of this. You have to, we're in a 1-bedroom right now, and we can't use our bedroom as an office. So we really have to be smart about the way that we're syncing our calls and our schedules. So we've actually, and we'll talk on this a little bit later, but we actually talk on Sundays and kind of compare our schedules, and Mitko's call calendar is synced with my calendar, so I can see when his calls are happening, schedule my calls around it. So just being really prepared ahead of time, because the worst, and still happens to us, but the same day something comes up and we both have calls, and when that happens, it's good to have a backup plan. So we have this patio, I guess you could call it, this little space outside. It's a little bit loud because it's by a road, but we know that one of us can go out there if absolutely necessary. So having that backup plan is really important.
And I will say there's also like how important is the call. Like for example, I have a podcast called That Remote Life. And for that, you need to be quiet, right? And I record video, so I don't want Sarah walking around in the background. But if it's just like a random quick call with somebody, then it's like, I've definitely been in the background of Sarah, like making like breakfast or something like that when she's been on a call. So there's different levels of calls, right?
Yeah.
So this is very important. This is what I get asked about. I think both of us really get asked a lot about, is like, how do you stay productive? So we kind of threw up some of our favorite tips here that we'll go over. So one of the really big ones is no long projects, okay? Make sure that you break things up into 12-week sprints, because what ends up happening that way is you constantly have a deadline that's very, very close. If you have something that's like a year-long project, you kind of forget about the fact that that project is, coming up, that you need to be working on it. That deadline doesn't seem so real. So taking a big goal and kind of breaking it down into little things, make sure that you stay productive, because there's a deadline that you can really feel coming up all the time. Two really big ones for me are to work when you have the most energy. So one of the really nice things about being a remote worker is a lot of times it's easier for you to have more freedom around when you work. And taking note of when you have the most energy is really important, because there's no point in you trying to force yourself to work when you're dead tired. So for example, I have energy in the morning, so I tend to do a lot of my focused work early in the morning. And then I kind of die around 3 p.m. and I have no energy to do anything on a computer, but then I get like a big energy spurt at like 10:30, right? So I might put in like an extra hour before bed or something like that. Time blocking is huge. This is one of those things that's not sexy. It's been talked about for decades, and so we forget about it, but there's a reason why it's been around for so long. It's because we as humans actually perceive time as space. We visualize time, right? Because we can't actually like perceive time as its own thing. So think about how we talk about time. We say that a meeting is short or long, right? Like we visualize it in this way. We talk about calls being outside of business hours. And this actually, very interestingly, is true throughout different languages. So it's not just in English. So actually writing down what you need to do and then sitting down on a calendar and saying, okay, when am I going to do this is very important, because you'll quickly realize the 15 things that you wanted to do, you actually do not have enough time in the day to do it. So that's really, really important.
So the next two kind of go hand in hand as well. So staying longer in each place, we are not, for sure not, and this is, person to person, we are for sure not cut out for this moving every 2 weeks type of life with work. Like we need to settle in and get routines going. So we've usually found around 3 months to be our sweet spot. We're testing this a little bit with this vacation, or not vacation, but this stay, kind of like a vacation in Puerto Vallarta. So we're doubled that to 6 months, but I think 3 months is usually, it keeps our excitement up about the place. And I think that's our kind of sweet spot. Sorry about the alarm going off in the background.
Yeah. And an interesting tip about this as well is like the reason why 3 months is a sweet spot is because we found, like what we talked about was being here for 6 months. We're at 5 months right now. And about a few weeks ago, I kind of started feeling a little like, all right, I think it's time to go. Like I wasn't really feeling energized. I wasn't really feeling inspired. And so 3 months is kind of this period where you can create routines and get settled in and enjoy the place and have enough time to work and see your location. But then, you get the inspiration of going somewhere else afterwards.
Yeah. So this is one of our favorite ones. I think we started doing this in the last year or so, 2 years, this setting aside an Airbnb budget. So we frequently get to an Airbnb and really dislike the pillows, and you go to Costco, okay, there's Costco here. You can't always go to Costco, but you go to a store, pillows are like $10 or $15 for a nice pillow. And when you think about it, like that's your sleep. That's so important to everything that you're doing. So little things like that, pillows, a whiteboard is a huge one. We bought a whiteboard, which felt pretty expensive. It was like a $30 whiteboard. But we were like, okay, it's going to be good for us. It's going to help with productivity and everything. So finding those things that really enhance your experience in a location. And that obviously kind of depends. The budget for that depends on how long you're staying. Is it worth it to have, for 3 months or 6 months or whatever that is?
Yeah. And if you think about it, like if you set aside like $100 budget and you stay someplace for 3 months, that's $1 a day for you to enjoy that place so much more. So it makes a lot of sense. And different people will have different little like things that they buy, right? So like I like to buy a scale because I like to go and exercise and just kind of stay in shape. A friend of ours travels with a router to ensure that he has the best Wi-Fi possible. So these are just a few tips. But another thing about staying productive is knowing why you're doing what you're doing and having a clear understanding of what success looks like. So one of the really big misconceptions is that burnout is about working too much. But I'm sure that we all know somebody who is a workaholic, but is just constantly buzzing with energy. And it's because they really love what they're doing. They know why they're doing it. They have a strong reason for doing it. And also they don't lack clarity. So it's really easy to get burnt out if you're constantly working, but you don't really know why you're working and what you're working towards. So keeping that clear is very important.
And one thing on that too, just that I want to say is, this goes with a job. If you're working a job that you hate and it's mundane and you hate it and you don't feel like you're going anywhere, going to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico or whatever is not going to fix that. You're still going to be in your office and like, why am I doing this? If it's something you can look out at this beautiful view and still not enjoy what you're doing and feel burnout. And when you feel burnout, then you're just going to want to sit inside, and it's just like a big, horrible cycle. So that's another thing, is just don't think that like a location is going to fix everything. It's going to help for a minute, maybe, but I think that's a really important part to add to that.
And finally, switch up your location, get out of the apartment. It's really easy for us to get out of bed, come to the desk, and then 7 hours later, just like go back to bed without like leaving the apartment. So I love to switch it up and go to a coffee shop in the afternoon, for example.
For sure. So a couple of destinations that we've really grown to love over our 5 years. We're a little bit biased on Bulgaria just because our Bulgarian here. So we're a little bit biased, but this picture is from Mitko's, I was about to say our hometown, but Mitko's hometown in Bulgaria. This is Varna. It is on the Black Sea. The Wi-Fi internet is wonderful. There are wonderful coffee shops. There's a beach. It's amazing. I just love it. It's amazing. And then this picture here is from Sofia, Bulgaria, which is the capital. Again, it's in the mountains. It's beautiful. I don't have enough good things to say about it. And then if you want to talk about Mexico City, because you're more
I think Mexico in general has a lot of benefits, especially for people from the US, because you stay in the same time zone. The weather is better, right? Like we all know, what is it called? Snowbirds that come down here in the winter. There's a reason why they do that. It's super easy to have family and friends come and visit you. Mexico City is one of the best cities that is the least discovered by people in the US, I think. And in general, there's a lot of places in Mexico that are really great. We both really like Budapest. Budapest. Has been a really great spot for us. But in general, we'll say that we have found kind of like Mexico and Eastern Europe as our two kind of like locations outside of the US. And creating home bases around destinations, I think, is also a really great idea of kind of saying, hey, we spend 3 months in the summer in Eastern Europe, then we'll do, maybe some time in the fall in the US, and then go to Mexico or somewhere else in South America for the winter.
Absolutely. All right, so we're talking boundaries because there's a lot of boundaries that happen when you travel together. Very important topic to talk about for sure for traveling together as a couple. This is this first one is probably the biggest one for us. Is we have, and it's been a process and it's been like a long journey, but you have to be able to say, hey, you're not invited on this trip. I'm going on a trip for 2 weeks. I don't like, just to preface all of this, we live together, we work in the same, room together for 90% of the time. We hang out together after we work, and we spend a lot of time together. So it's maybe a little bit different for us, but we have, moving forward, we've kind of said that we're going to take 2-week trips on our own every single year, at least. Like that's minimum. And like, we're not going together. We're taking that time. But even on a day-to-day basis, there's so many times where Mitko says, I'm going to the coffee shop and I just want to go alone. And it works on two ends where he has to feel comfortable enough to say that. And I have to be comfortable enough to accept that and say, oh, it's not that he's mad at me or doesn't like me or like doesn't love me. It's just that, you need time apart, and it's so important. So it's really a practice on both ends of you being able to say that. Because for a while you were afraid to say that to me, probably for a reason.
I would be like, okay, I'm going to the coffee shop and I don't want you to come. And she'd be like, oh,
that made me sound so needy. But it's been a practice. Like it's been a long time coming. So we've gotten really good at that recently. The last like few years we've gotten really good at that.
Yeah, and I think scheduling time off from work. Again, it sounds like when you're a digital nomad, you should just be like constantly like off on adventures. But in reality, it kind of doesn't really work if you want to do it long-term and sustainably. So actually saying, and it doesn't matter when you schedule that time, right? Like what we've been doing recently is on Wednesdays, we'll take half the day and go to the beach, right? So it doesn't have to be just Saturday, Sunday, but communicating that with your partner, because like we said, we all have calls or different schedules, and actually setting that time aside, saying, hey, we're gonna, do something at this time is important.
Yeah. So one thing that we've been doing for the last, I think 2 years or so now, that's just help with communication in general. Like at the end of the day, traveling with a partner, there's so on a constant basis, it's so much communication. It's constant communication. And so one thing that we've picked up over the last couple years are these things called life dinners that we've been doing every single month. And essentially what it is, we can get into a little bit later. Essentially what it is a monthly dinner that we do where we just communicate. It's an open line of communication for both of us. It's a safe space to, say anything that's bothering us, and kind of go through the ups and downs of the past month, what Mitko has done that has made me really happy and made me feel really loved, and other things that I feel are lacking that need to be worked on. It's just a really open line of communication. And over the last couple of years, we've really developed a structure of how that works. And I think I don't want to say perfected it, but nearly. And it's just improved our day-to-day communication, our big communication, helped us have those hard conversations. And it's just been a really, I don't want to say a lifesaver, but almost.
It's just very beneficial to have time set aside where like, hey, it's like, here's something that's bothering me. Here's something that I really love. Here's something that I like to work on, et cetera, et cetera. So it's nice to set aside time for that, because, it's not a good time to do that like in the middle of the day at some point. But another really important thing that I wanted to say is I remember I had a manager when I was still like before we became nomadic and we had traveled for the first time. And I remember her, and I was like, what, 23 at the time? And she was like, all right, if you guys can travel together, you can get married and like settle down. And this to me was such a like strange comment. But the thing that we found around COVID is that it's a muscle. So the same way that you can live with someone at home and do like the regular 9 to 5, you know, like whatever it may be, that's one type of muscle. Traveling together is a different type of muscle. And we discovered this when we actually had to settle down for COVID. We realized that we actually had a little bit more tension right away in a relationship because we didn't know how to do that. And it took us a few months to kind of get into the routine and build that muscle of like, okay, how do we do our relationship when we're not traveling? So don't expect that you're going to start traveling with your partner and like immediately you're going to just have like a perfect time or whatever. Like give it time for that muscle to build and to develop.
For sure.
So
we are hosting, this is actually our second round of our Life Dinner Masterclass, as we just mentioned in that last slide there. We've really come up with this really great structure of how we do these dinners, kind of got it down to a science, and we just wanted to invite anyone that wanted to come. So that's going to be happening on Wednesday, May 25th at 8 p.m. And it's lifedinner.com for the link. There's a $27 ticket to join it. But we ran it in February and just had a lot of really great feedback from it. And it's just been really good for people. So we're excited to put it on again. And yeah,
it's just a training to show you guys how we do that. And we provide you with some actually like things that you can walk away with. And we tell you how to set up a dinner with your partner and how to run it. And like Sarah said, it's actually something that we really look forward to every single month. So we think that you guys would really benefit from it.
And we just want to hang out again.
But that's kind of everything that we have prepared for you guys. So if you guys have any questions, more than happy to answer them.
Awesome. This was super insightful. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to pop that link in the chat in a bit, but we'll get to a few of these questions first. So someone has a history of being a digital nomad and their fiance and them met after settling there, but they don't love traveling. Just curious if you have any tips for them.
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
So they're a digital nomad, but their fiance doesn't like to travel as much. Do you have any tips for them?
Ooh. What do you think? Mitko and I kind of talked about this as we were talking about what to discuss on this exactly. It's such a difference between, we were lucky enough to start this journey together and like we were both on the same page and we really wanted to do this. And then there's the other side of it, which I know a lot of digital nomads, and this is obviously there's digital nomads that are like looking for partners, and this is a con in the lifestyles. Like if you're looking for a partner, if you have a partner that doesn't enjoy travel, like how do you find that?
So we actually have a friend who we've done a few trips with, and she loves to travel, but her husband doesn't. Like he's like, I don't want to leave the country, and that's fine, right? And I think it comes down to just being very open and honest early on and saying like, hey, it's okay if you don't want to do this, but I'm going to do this. And so, for example, she's traveled with us a bunch. She takes a lot of vacations, and they're perfectly fine with kind of like, she needs to fill her bucket and he needs to fill his bucket. So I would just say, make sure that you have that conversation early on and don't just like avoid having that conversation, because when that builds up without being addressed, it can become an issue down the road.
Yeah. And I see, I'm in some like female travel groups, and this question comes up a lot. And, the internet's a weird place, but there's all these comments that are immediately like, he doesn't like to travel, dump him. He doesn't. And I don't think that's the answer. I think like you can make it work. It just needs to be, there's going to be a compromise on both sides, and just, you have to figure out what that looks like for you. And, there's different seasons of relationships, and maybe you go for a year and travel, and like, there's just different seasons that you're going to go through, and just keeping that open line of communication throughout is really important. So, yeah.
Yeah, completely. And I mean, I'll jump in there too. I'm also married and I don't always travel with my husband, but it's totally healthy to have that alone time. I think that you guys
Sure.
hit the nail on the head talking about having side trips by yourself. It is so healthy for a relationship to be able to
For
do that by
sure.
yourself.
Yeah.
Got other questions about what platforms do you use to find your rentals for the 3 months?
This question is
So Airbnb is the one. If I would say if you're staying anywhere for like a month or less, we use Airbnb.
I think I'm the apartment hunter of the
She's the
relationship.
apartment
Like I
hunter.
obsess over this. I love doing it. Airbnb has become really expensive in the last few years. I know there's just been a really big jump in prices and it's just become really expensive. So if you can find, I always check on Facebook Marketplace. Like, and I know this is probably better for like bigger cities, but you know, we're trying to figure out where we're going next year, and we're looking at Mexico City and Oaxaca for next year. And like I'm constantly in Facebook Marketplace, like looking, and if it says 6-month minimum lease, you know, just like reach out to them and see if they're willing. They might just like increase the price a little bit, or so I'd say Facebook Marketplace and Airbnb. And what's the one that you Flatio? Is that?
Yeah, there's a new competitor out there called Flat.io, which is focused on doing midterm rentals. So they don't do anything less than 2 weeks, but they're mostly focused on Europe at the moment. Like a lot of their, it's like Central and Western Europe is where a lot of their listings are. But I know that they're trying to move into Mexico and the US. But there's a lot of this, like,
Also, sorry to interrupt you, but if you're going to like any city, I always recommend searching Facebook groups for that city and like expats of this city, or like rentals in Oaxaca, or rentals in, or like expats, anything. Like anytime we're going somewhere new, I almost always join these Facebook groups because I want to know like, okay, where can I get this grocery ingredient? What store can I get this like weird thing from? And it's always, there's so much information in Facebook groups that you can get. And so I would definitely suggest looking there as well. So
yeah, and just I will say that in the grand scheme of things, we're still very early on in this industry and in this space and this lifestyle. And companies know that, and they're working on the problem. They recognize that this is an issue. So I think over the next 5-10 years, this is really going to change, because I personally know multiple people working on this problem.
Yeah.
So we're just still in an infancy stage.
For sure.
So it's going to be harder, but I expect this to develop over time.
I just saw one comment from Laura in here. She said, can you stop moving it? She said, a friend is a world traveler and her husband does not like to travel at all. Before they got married, she told him that while she loves him, if he ever told her that she couldn't travel, they would not be able to stay together. And I found that, she said, I find that so strong, and it has been a boundary that they joke about as work. I love that. That's awesome. That's really cool. So I just wanted to mention that really quick.
Yeah, I love that. Keep popping stuff like that in the chat, please.
Awesome.
Somebody had asked if you have used office spaces temporarily, like maybe co-working spaces. Do you have any experiences to share?
Yes, we are big fans of co-working spaces if they're good. So I don't think that a co-working space is just like an office, because coffee shops are plenty good enough now for that. But if there's a co-working space in the city that is a good place to do work, but also as like a community, so you can like meet people and see what's going on and do events, I highly recommend it.
A really great example of that is in Varna, Mitko's hometown. There's a co-working space called Innovator, and the co-working, like the Wi-Fi is great. The space is like, it's not anything, you know, super fancy, or it looks good, but it's nothing crazy. But the community there is so strong. Like we got there, and if you don't go to, like, they will never stop inviting you to events. They don't, you know, it's not pressure, it's not whatever, but they are just, the community is huge. And I think they're a really great example of that, because they're constantly having movie nights and just talking to you. And I think they do a really great job of that.
And just to say that I'm seeing a lot of people asking about Flatio. I think their website used to be like flat.io, but now I think they own flatio.com. So yeah.
Cool.
Okay, yeah, I was trying to find that link, but it's apparently like a music thing now. But what was the city on the Black Sea that you loved? Someone had asked.
Varna. So the thing
Varna?
with Varna is Varna. So the really cool thing about Varna is it's weird because I grew up there. And then when I started learning about the digital nomad world, I was like, wow, people would really like Varna based on like what I see people liking. The really nice thing is Bulgaria in general has very, very fast Wi-Fi infrastructure wise and has had it for years. And so Varna it's on the beach. So like we walk to the beach. It's like a 5-10 minute walk to the beach from our apartment. The food is fantastic. It's very affordable living. The beaches are beautiful. Like I think when people say that I go to the beach in Eastern Europe, they imagine like Chernobyl, but on like a beach, and that's not at all what it looks like. And yeah, it's just the infrastructure is great for working there because I mean we'll go to like a kebab shop and it has like a 60 download, 60 upload speed, you know, that you can just like hang out at.
Sounds like I need to go to Bulgaria.
Yes, you do. We'll be there. Well, not this year, but.
Okay, yeah, let's go. Someone had missed the last item in staying productive. Could you go back to that slide?
Yes, of course. Which one?
Switching up your location.
Yeah, so the last one is just I like to like get out and go like work at a coffee shop at least for a couple hours.
I'm such a homebody with this. Like I just want to like sit inside and like I have my little space. I have my coffee. I have everything. I can play music, whatever. So that one's a little bit harder for me. And sometimes I'm, you know, if I'm feeling a dip in energy, I just need to force myself to get out, and then my productivity is through the roof. So Mitko's really good at that, and I am working on it. But yeah.
Awesome. Someone asked if you had any recommendations on handling US mail. Do you have a US address?
So the way that we do this is our US mail goes to my parents and then they take pictures and send it to me. I know that that works for us. My parents they don't mind it. But if you don't have that option, there are and I don't have specific ones to recommend, but you can Google this and you should be able to find it pretty quickly. There's 2 or 3 services that will actually take in your physical mail and will then email you PDF scans of that. And I can't remember the URL specifically, but there are services that will do that for you.
Yeah, we don't have a US address right now.
What's my parents?
Yeah, okay,
yeah.
I know. Okay, so we have his parents. We don't have our own right now. We're working on that, but.
Yeah, and you can do if you don't have family that you want to put that on. I know that like you can use like a PO box. So I have a lot of friends who have a PO box that they use for a US address.
We've been really, really lucky. Both of our parents are just really helpful in that regard. And we know that we're very lucky to have them and we really appreciate them. So yeah.
I think they look at it as like a trade-off. Like they have to deal with their mail, but they have a place to stay when they come visit in Mexico. Yeah. So they're like, we'll deal with it. So
and it gives them like an excuse to call us all the time. Be like, you got this in the mail. Yeah. So, you know,
Yeah, that's so cute.
Yeah.
So for me, I was wondering if you guys have tried to do house sitting in order to kind of keep expenses lower than trying to do Airbnb.
Not really. We were into dog sitting for a little bit, but in the States. So it was for like a week at a time. I didn't have much luck. I know I think we're paying for trusted house sitters still maybe, but I didn't have much. I don't want to say I didn't have much luck because I don't think the effort was put up on my part. And I know that because I did a lot of research in it at the beginning, and I guess the strategy with that is to just get kind of any stay that you can in the beginning, like short-term stay, anything in the beginning, and build up your profile and get reviews in the door and get that going. And then you can do the, you know, bigger, longer, beautiful stays in Spain and all these different countries. But we never really got into that.
Yeah, it's just, I know people who use and love it. We personally, don't. And yeah.
Fair enough. So where to next for you guys? What's the plan?
So we are finishing out our stay here until the last week of April, and then we're going to be in Guanajuato, Mexico, which is like a mountain town, or north of Mexico City.
Yeah.
Kind of a mountain town. And so Puerto Vallarta is kind of a happening place. There's a lot of like party culture. It's a big city and we're not huge party people, but it's just, there's a lot going on. It's loud and we love it. But we are going to a pretty secluded villa in Guanajuato. It's this 2-bedroom villa. It's in a garden. It's quiet. And my introverted self is going to be very happy to just get away and, be in the quiet for a month. And then after that, we're actually headed to the States for the summer for the first time in a long time to enjoy the summer in Michigan and Cincinnati, and hopefully meet up with you and hang out there for a little bit before we come back later in the fall. We had a ton of weddings to attend this year. So we just decided to hang back and yeah.
Cool. I mean, your lifestyle obviously lets you do those things. So that's what's great about it. You can go to the weddings and you can keep traveling afterwards.
Yeah. And that's, one more quick thing to add is like, for me, the digital nomad lifestyle isn't just about going to Mexico and Spain and all these cool places. It's like, that's great. But one of the coolest things is going back to my parents' house and being able to stay there for 2 weeks, and then going to Mitko's parents' house and staying with them for 2 weeks. And it's really cool to be able to do that and spend a lot of good quality time with, and follow them around on vacations and just spend that good quality time and go visit friends. And that's been a really cool, really underrated part of this lifestyle, I think, is the flexibility to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone had asked about recommendations for midterm vehicle use.
Yeah, I saw that and I was going to say, can you provide me with a bit more what exactly you mean by midterm vehicle use?
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure either. Do you guys rent vehicles or just?
We have a car in the US that is paid off, and we've just said we're just going to run it into the ground, and it doesn't get used when we're not there. But when we are there, we have a car. Yeah. So that's kind of, so when we're staying on site, here in Mexico, for example, we don't actually have a vehicle, but it's so cheap to get an Uber here, or in Mexico, they even have InDriver, that it doesn't really, or a taxi, it doesn't really make sense. When we were in Varna as well, we'll do that where we need to go to there's an IKEA in Varna. So when we were refurnishing our apartment there, we just did a few taxi rides, and it's not the best solution, but it was all right, we got the job done. Ended up spending 15 leva in taxis, which is $7. It kind of doesn't.
And some of that is, you have to base your location on that. You can't, we can't stay, we're not going to stay somewhere that's an hour drive outside of a city with no public transport. That's a limit for us. And just because I'm sure you could rent a car or do a midterm vehicle lease or something, but it just sounds like a headache to me, honestly. And I'd rather just kind of pick our location based on where we go. So yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think that just comes down to when you're picking the place, look for a place that has infrastructure to support you.
And a lot of times, if you are going on Airbnb, a lot of times they'll mention in the reviews, they'll say, oh, this is only a 15-minute walk from a bus stop or a train stop or whatever. A lot of people mention that in there. So or they mention how they got there or whatever. So I definitely recommend just checking those reviews and seeing what other people say.
Yeah. Awesome. Good recommendations for sure. Looks like the other questions are all set, but I was wondering what a wedding in Bulgaria looks like.
Oh, it was interesting. We got married in October of 2020 in Kentucky, technically, at Red River Gorge. And then we had the Bulgarian I hate wedding planning. I'm not a wedding planning gal. I'm not a wedding gal. I hate it. I hate it. I love the part, it's fun, but I just don't like it. So when we got to Bulgaria, I was like, I'm not doing anything. I don't want to plan anything. I think we had 50 people there. No
way.
I don't know.
We had 20 something.
Whatever. 30. It's all the same to me. So we had all these we didn't really know what was happening because we had a family friend that was planning the wedding. And so
she's a wedding and party planner. So I just handed her some money and I said, I don't want to do anything.
So we didn't know what to expect. And we were we don't need an actual wedding. We just need to go through, because his grandma's 90 and she wanted to see us get married. So we just need to go through the motions, put on a show for grandma. So we show up to this wedding, and I think we're just going to yeah, I don't know, like have a party. We didn't even know there was going to be a ceremony. And so we're standing outside of the venue. No one's seen us yet. And we're about to like make our like grand entrance or whatever. And the wedding planner is like, okay, I need you to like give me your wedding bands so we can do the, like put the wedding rings on. I was like, oh, we're like doing this. So we walked in, there's an MC, there's a full arch, there's like, it's a whole event. It's like this whole thing. They had me repeat things in Bulgarian. And I was like, I have no idea what I just said. And it was a lot more than we bargained for, but it was really funny because we were clearly both very shocked in front of everyone. We were like, I don't know what's happening.
It ended up being more of a wedding than our actual wedding.
Yes.
Like it was more of like a regular wedding than like our actual wedding.
But they had, the cool thing was it was at this like beachside restaurant bar. And there was at this place, like during the day, they have a big water slide. It's like 2 racing water slides that are going during the day. So we paid like $60 or something to keep it open until like midnight at the wedding. So I had like my cute little white bride bathing suit. And we are all, it was so fun. We were going down like the water slides and you could see the stars and the city. It was so fun. It was like one of the best nights of my life. So I feel cheesy saying that about my wedding, but it was really fun.
No, that sounds so perfect. Awesome. And it's nice that you didn't really, like you were surprised by it. You didn't really have to do much.
No stress.
Kind of worked out.
Yeah. Wedding planning is as stressful as you make it. That's my, yeah.
Fully. Love that. Love that for you guys. Well, thank you so much. Can we all just give like a virtual round of applause? Okay, you can't see anybody else, but yeah, we're all clapping. Thank you. It's been awesome.
That's really fun.
Good. Stick around, guys. I'm just gonna